Silver is making historic moves, going to price levels that most people thought were impossible just 3 months ago.
Now, I'm sure you've heard, but we witnessed a historic decoupling in the precious metals complex. Silver, in fact, just as we went to market on Friday as the markets closed, trading above $103, a 7% intraday move last Friday.
So the question becomes, is it going to continue to moon or is it going to completely crash? I'm going to reveal the answers for you in 3 simple fast steps. Step number 1, let's go over this unprecedented move that we have seen in silver. And by the way, it's been mooning, but it's also been crashing at the exact same time. More on that in just a moment. But let's go back just 6 months ago. We go to August all the way to today's date. On the left, we go from 16 bucks up to 36. This is the PSLV, the Sprott Silver Trust. We use this as a proxy for the price of silver. But at the time we record this video, in the last 6 months, it's up about 174%, with the vast majority of that move coming in the last, 2 or 3 weeks. And what's completely insane is the gap ups that we have seen in the chart. Editor, go ahead and throw up the candlestick chart of the PSLV. And I want to point out what happened just the other day when we had this massive gap up. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that in the precious metals. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you my prediction as to where the price is going to go for silver and if it's going to continue to go parabolic or if it's going to crash right off a cliff. But there's one thing I can assure you, that over the next few months in silver, you are going to see some extreme volatility. And today is a great example, or let's just say the last 24 hours, where just yesterday morning, it was right around 102, and then intraday, it goes up by 14% in just a few hours. It goes from 102 to 117, and then a few hours later, it crashes all the way back down to 102. And at the time we're doing this video, well, this morning is right around 112. So who knows what the price is going to do by the time you watch this video, and who knows what the price is going to do in the next 5 minutes. But one thing I can assure you is you're going to see some extreme volatility. And I think for people who own silver, this is the key, because psychologically, that's very difficult to deal with. Do you buy, hold, sell when you see these intraday price moves of 14%? That's something we're going to address in this video.
Step number 2, now let's go back in time, study history. Look at the charts and see how these cycles have played out in the past. And we're going to stick with the Sprott Physical Silver Trust. So we go back to 2011, and this is when we had the last blow-off top, if you will. And I remember that extremely well. I remember all the commercials on TV were "We Buy Your Gold." All the kiosks at the mall were "We Buy Gold." They even had the guys on the street corner that were spinning those signs. "We buy gold." And silver went right along with it. And I think that psychology is very important. You've got to include that into your analysis to determine whether now you want to buy, hold, or sell. So what I want to focus on is going back to December of 2010, and this is when that big move started, or I guess you could argue it was January of 2011, and that's when it just went completely parabolic, similar to what we have seen over the last month or so. And we went from 12 bucks on the Sprott Physical Silver Trust up to, call it 23. This happened in a very short time frame, call it 3 to 4 months. And I think that's crucial in analyzing what's happening right now. And as you can see by this chart, you definitely want to get the timing right. And even if you're in silver right now, this is not investment advice, but this is what I would do. Definitely have tight stops, because once this thing starts to go, it usually just absolutely falls off a cliff. I mean, look at this. Yikes, straight down from 23 to 15 in the matter of, a week? Because these are daily candlesticks. So you definitely don't want to be on the wrong side of that momentum. But now let's fast forward to today and see what the chart looks like. In fact, actually, before we get there, what I want to highlight are the last 3 days of this move up. And you can see, editor, let's kind of zoom in on these 3 days when we got to that peak of $23. We started high. In fact, we were gapping up, but then we finished the day much, much lower than where we started. And we see that actually with this red candlestick that really plummeted after it got up to 23. We see the exact same price action. I think it's very, very important to be cognizant of that when we're looking at the next chart, which is what silver has been doing more recently. So here's a daily chart. The first thing we can see is this move started in, call it December. So we're about 2 months into this move, and the last move lasted, 3 or 4 months? So I guess maybe that could be an argument as to there's still a lot of room to run in this silver trade, going a lot higher. But we look at these gaps up, and usually, not just in silver, but usually when you see things like this, it's very close to a significant pullback because nothing goes up in a straight line. The other thing I want to highlight is how we're starting to see these candlesticks where we open the day. I mean, look at yesterday. We open the day and you go straight up to 38, but then you go all the way back down and close around, and call it 35. And today we're seeing something very similar, which is very similar to what we saw at the blow-off top in 2011, where you start the day at a higher price and then you continue lower throughout the day into the close. So for me, when I look at these two charts, you've got a bullish argument that we're only 2 months into this thing, so it's got a lot more room to run. But then you've got the bearish argument that when you start to see these gap ups, usually you're going to have a huge, huge pullback. And we've got the further bearish argument when you start to see these red type of candlesticks at the top of a parabolic move, often that signals that the top is in. But what I'd also focus on, in addition to the charts, psychology. Very, very important. So ask yourself, your friend and family member Fred, the guy or gal that you know, or guys or gals that you know that aren't interested in markets, they're not interested in investing, they never talk about this stuff. And all of a sudden you get a phone call from them saying that they went down to the local pawn shop or whatever, and they're buying physical silver because, oh my gosh, I heard it's going to go up. Or you see the cover to The Economist magazine, or the equivalent of, saying that silver is going to go to $500 an ounce. That's another signal that I would use in addition to these charts to make my decision as to whether I wanted to buy, sell, or hold.
Step number 3, now the fun part, my prediction as to how high, or maybe how low, the price of silver will go. But before we get there, let's talk about different options, because I know many of you in the audience are extremely bullish on the precious metals in general, regardless of what I say. And we've been talking about some very interesting things in Rebel Capitals Pro. That's the monthly investment membership site I have with my good friends Brent Johnson, Chris McIntosh, etc. And the one thing that Lynn Alden actually talked about with our pro members is platinum. And I didn't realize that in these cycles, platinum usually moves after silver. So I knew that gold goes first, then the miners go, then silver goes, then the silver miners go. But I didn't really know platinum goes after that, and she pointed that out. So that's something, again, this isn't investment advice, just telling you what we're talking about in Rebel Capitals Pro, and I'm going to be telling you what I'm doing in my own personal portfolio here in a minute. But just telling you kind of what we're discussing and what very, very smart people like Lynn Alden are thinking about. So maybe look at platinum. Now the silver miners. I've heard my good friend Doug Casey talk about this. I talked about it the other day with my good friend Adam Taggart on his show, Thoughtful Money. And what Adam pointed out, which I didn't realize, is that gold has moved, let's just say 50%. And these aren't exact numbers, I'm just using them for the sake of the example. But let's say gold has gone up by 50%. The gold miners have gone up by 100%. Silver has gone up by, let's say 174%. But the silver miners haven't gone up to a greater degree. They've pretty much gone up at the exact same pace. So you would expect them to perform better in the cycle. So it may be an interesting move, again, not investment advice, but it may be interesting to take some of that silver off the table and allocate it to the silver miners. Now let's go over what I'm doing with my own portfolio. Now, unfortunately, I missed the majority of this move, but fortunately, I actually got in about 3 weeks ago, and I was up about 30% or so on the move, and I was going to hold the position as long as it was continuing to go up, but we had such a huge gap up the other day that I actually put in a stop, and I got that stop hit with PSLV right around $35.25. So currently I am not in silver. I do not have a position. But let me tell you when I would get back in. And we'll use PSLV again as a proxy here. We're doing that throughout this video. If PSLV gets above its high water mark where it was yesterday, so let's just say, I think it got all the way up to maybe 36, even at one point in time intraday, 38 bucks. So if it exceeds that high, let's say in the next 2 months, so let's say it comes back down here, it starts to consolidate, a lot less volume, definitely less volatility, and then starts to gradually, in a more healthy way, move back up and then exceeds the previous high, that's when I would think about getting back in to the trade. Why is that? Because as my good friend Hugh Hendry says, I like to buy stuff when it's going up, not when it's going down. I've noticed all the best investing advice is always the most simple. So now let's get into my price prediction. Where do I think silver is going? Let's just say in the next 6 months. This is a toughie. I think 150 is actually in the cards. Let me tell you why. Now, I definitely don't like what's happening in the charts with those red candlesticks, but that could be a short-term pullback here, then again, some consolidation, then you continue the move higher. And for me, it's all about sentiment. Now, I haven't had any of my friend and family member Freds call me up and tell me they're buying silver yet. I haven't seen it on the cover of any magazines. And I look at CNBC every single day, and quite frankly, other than Jim Cramer making an announcement that he's selling silver, which is a great contrarian indicator, I don't really see them talking about it like they talk about even Bitcoin or crypto or AI. So for me, that tells me from a sentiment standpoint, psychological, and again, this all goes back to human psychology, that it's still got some room to run. Now that said, just as a reminder, I do not have a position right now, and although I think silver could go to 150, I will not buy again until we get past that recent high that we hit on the PSLV, right around 36, 38 bucks per share. Now, if you guys want even more insights and contrarian strategies for how to play the precious metals, energy, commodities, equities, and even bonds, you should check out Rebel Capitalist Pro. That's the private investment community. I have my good friends Chris McIntosh, Brent Johnson, Patrick Ceresna, Jason Hartman, just to name a few. And we talk about this stuff all the time, and I give our pro members real-time trade alerts as to what I am doing with my own portfolio. So if you want to check out all that insider intel, we'll put a link in the description below.